The armor returns to European soil. Train cars filled with tanks rumble through German forests at night. New missile silos break ground in Romania, out of sight from public roads. And Nordic airfields, once reserved for civilian use, now host foreign fighter jets under silent agreements. Across the continent, Europe is arming, but not loudly. Budgets are rising. Conscription is returning. And NATO is rewriting its defensive doctrine with unprecedented speed. This is not World War III, but it may be the first act of something closer than anyone expected. The question isn't whether Europe is preparing for conflict. The question is, which conflict? A continent remilitarist. Europe, long defined by its post-war peace and political integration, is quietly becoming something else. A theater of strategic preparation. Since early 2022, and escalating sharply in 2024 to 2025, nearly every major European state has increased its defense spending, reactivated dormant bases, and entered into new military procurement contracts behind closed doors. What began as a response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine has evolved. European states are no longer just donors of arms. They are rebuilding their own militaries, modernizing defense industries, and reforming recruitment. Some of the biggest changes are not being publicly debated. They're being implemented administratively, often bypassing parliaments under emergency doctrines. According to leaked NATO readiness reports, at least 6 member states are now operating under Tier 1 contingency protocols, the highest state of peacetime alert, typically reserved for imminent border threats. And yet the public discourse remains subdued. Leaders speak in vague language about readiness and resilience, but do not name the conflicts they're preparing for. There are multiple reasons. Russia's unpredictability and its deeper integration with Belarus, concerns about U.S. disengagement or political shifts after 2024. Unstable regions to the east and south, stretching from Moldova to the Sahel, and the reawakening of internal European debates about sovereignty, force projection, and deterrence. This is not panic. It is posture. And posture, when maintained long enough, becomes position. In this investigation, we examine 5 key regions where Europe's quiet rearmament is no longer theoretical expressional. 1. Germany. 2. Poland and the Baltic states. 3. France. Each segment is presented with clear context, intelligent signals, and subtle build-up analysis. 1. Germany breaking the post-war barrier. For decades, Germany maintained a restrained military posture in its post-World War II constitution, shaped by pacifist public opinion and dependent on U.S. guarantees. That era is ending. In 2022, Germany announced a €100 billion special defense fund. By 2024, most of it had already been allocated. But in 2025, leaked Bundeswehr documents circulated within NATO's internal alert system revealed a much larger ambition. To transform Germany into Europe's leading land power within 5 years, Germany has ordered over 350 Leopard 2 A8 tanks. With contracts signed quietly, commissioned new anti-aircraft batteries along the Polish border, accelerated F-35 integration from 2030 to 2026, and expanded conscription debates behind closed Bundestag sessions. With new civil military readiness protocols initiated under emergency powers, perhaps more telling, military units are being stationed near civilian infrastructure hubs, including highways retrofitted for rapid troop transport. German train operators have signed defense mobilization contracts last used in the Cold War. U.S. intelligence analysts, based on drone traffic and base logistics, suggest Germany is preparing not just for defense, but for interoperability in high-intensity NATO ground conflict. This includes infrastructure for U.S. and Dutch divisions expected to rotate through German soil in the event of a multi-front regional escalation. Germany is not broadcasting these changes, but in military briefings, they refer to the current posture as strategic realignment eastward, a phrase that only makes sense if what lies east is about to become very real. 2. Poland and the Baltic states, fortress on the frontier. No region in Europe has moved faster or more decisively to militarists than Poland. Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. For them, the war in Ukraine was not a wake-up call. It was a confirmation. Poland has now surpassed every EU country in defense spending relative to GDP. Reaching over 4% in 2025, it has ordered over 1,000 K2 tanks from South Korea, acquired HIMARS systems and Patriot batteries from the US, deployed permanent combat units along the Suwalki Gap, the critical corridor between Belarus and Kaliningrad, leaked military logistics from NATO. Eastern Command suggests Poland is quietly being positioned as the central mobilization zone for any NATO-led counteroffensive against a Russian incursion west of Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Baltic states have enacted rapid rearmament under emergency legislation. Lithuania has expanded its conscription pool by 40%. It's now requiring military-ready registration for all men under 35. Latvia is building a joint air defense shield with Estonia, codenamed Northern Wall, based on German IRIS-T systems. All three have integrated command structures with US and British rapid response units, allowing for instant activation despite the public framing of these moves as deterrence. Internal documents reviewed by Stratfor suggest a dual strategy: immediate homeland defense and staging ground for Western intervention into a contested buffer zone, possibly eastern Ukraine or Moldova. Border closures with Belarus have intensified. Rail traffic has been militarized. Forest roads once open to hikers are now fenced and patrolled by armed guards. The Baltics are not preparing to negotiate. They're preparing to survive, if it comes to that. And to ensure that the first 72 hours of a conflict are fought on prepared, not passive ground. 3. France rearmament with a global eye. France has always viewed itself as militarily autonomous, operating alongside NATO, but never beneath it. In 2025, it's using that flexibility to quietly increase its military footprint, not only in Europe, but across the Francophone world. The French Ministry of Armed Forces recently signed an undisclosed expansion deal with Dassault for 45 additional Rafale fighters and new-generation Scaled missiles. Satellite imagery from French Guiana shows the construction of new long-range radar arrays, suggesting a shift toward broader missile detection infrastructure not limited to Europe. Leaked dispatches from the French embassy in Algiers suggest growing concern over instability in the Sahel, especially after the collapse of democratic governments in Niger and Mali. France is believed to be repositioning special forces from Africa to Corsica and southern France, not as retreat, but as strategic consolidation. But it's what's happening domestically that signals a deeper rearmament. France is expanding its nuclear deterrence doctrine, increasing the readiness cycle of submarine-based warheads. A civil defense reserve has been reintroduced, allowing local authorities to draft trained personnel into logistical support roles during crises. And critical infrastructure bridges, power stations, communications towers is being mapped and hardened in preparation for hybrid warfare scenarios. French military doctrine refers to this posture as projection under constraint, the ability to operate offensively if necessary, but always from a prepared homeland. In closed EU defense forums, France has argued for the creation of an independent European rapid force capable of responding without US authorization. Whether that vision will materialize remains uncertain, but the preparation is already underway. France is not just watching Europe's rearmament, it's engineering its own sphere within it. 4. Nordic countries, Arctic silence, NATO noise in the far north, where peace was once assumed. The Nordic states are undergoing a quiet transformation from neutral democracies into forward NATO operating zones. Sweden and Finland, now full NATO members, have triggered a cascade of military integration. Finland has completed a 1,340-kilometer fortified border project with Russia, including new electronic surveillance arrays and drone-resistant fences. Sweden, long known for neutrality, has signed mutual force deployment agreements with both the US and UHK, granting access to strategic ports and air bases. Leaked Finnish Defense Ministry documents refer to a posture shift termed winter threshold readiness, a doctrine built around defending against a surprise strike during Arctic transition months. When air power is limited and ground logistics are slow, the Arctic, too, is no longer untouched. Norway has quietly expanded its undersea surveillance grid in the North Atlantic Gap, reportedly to monitor Russian submarine activity near the GI-UK corridor. Satellite footage from Kirkenes shows new hardened aircraft shelters within 40 kilometers of the Russian border. Denmark has approved the permanent basing of NATO logistics units in Greenland under the cover of climate monitoring operations. Collectively, the Nordics have tripled their joint operational capacity in just 3 years, primarily for cold weather. Higher readiness scenarios involving both conventional and hybrid threats. What's telling is not just what's being built, but how little of it is being announced. No speeches, no declarations. Just silent cooperation agreements, construction sites hidden in snow, and a regional force posture that speaks louder than any press release. Europe's northern frontier is no longer neutral. It is watching, listening, and preparing. 5. Eastern Balkans and Romania, the forgotten front. While eyes are fixed on the Suwalki Gap or the Donbass, another corridor is reinforcing quietly. Romania, Bulgaria, and the Eastern Balkans, the potential southern flank in a wider European conflict. Romania now hosts one of NATO's most critical new facilities. The multinational division Southeast is tasked with rapid deployment coordination across the Black Sea region. Intelligence briefings from USEUCOM describe it as the linchpin of any future response involving Moldova or Odessa. Romania has expanded its Mihail Kogalnishnu air base to accommodate U.S. strategic bombers, purchased Turkish Bayraktar drones under a direct-to-use agreement, activated 3 civilian staging corridors designed for the rapid conversion of highways to military deployment routes. Bulgaria, once reluctant to host foreign troops, has reversed course. In 2024, it signed agreements with the U.S. to deploy rotational armored units along its eastern border. Serbian intelligence reports suggest Bulgaria has also expanded electronic warfare stations pointed at southern Ukraine. Meanwhile, Moldova, straddling this theater, has begun joint training exercises with Romanian forces, prompting strong responses from the Kremlin and Transnistrian separatists. This front has no tanks lined up, no open threats. But logistics maps, surveillance patterns, and procurement contracts all suggest a deepening regional readiness, not for local skirmishes, but for transboundary escalation. It's the kind of preparation that doesn't require fanfare. It requires roads that can carry convoys, airfields that can switch to wartime posture in 24 hours, and governments that pass readiness legislation without public debate. In the Eastern Balkans, war isn't imminent. But the response to it is already rehearsed. From posture to position, Europe is not rushing into war. It is preparing not to be surprised by one. The quiet rearmament unfolding across the continent is not uniform. Some nations are defending borders, others are projecting capability. A few are testing the boundaries of autonomy within NATO, but the direction is clear. Military readiness is no longer taboo in European politics. It is now strategic consensus. Budgets have grown, bases have expanded. Conscription is returning under new names: civil duty, strategic readiness, territorial resilience. Every word carefully chosen to avoid panic, while fundamentally rewriting Europe's defense posture. What's changed is not just hardware, it's intent. The war in Ukraine may have triggered the shift, but what sustains it is something broader. Fear of us withdrawal from global leadership, uncertainty over Russian ambitions beyond Ukraine, and deep concern that Europe's security guarantees have expiration dates. NATO remains the backbone, but it is no longer the only spine. France is building autonomy. Germany is rewriting pacifism. The Nordics are fusing climate surveillance with Arctic defense. The Eastern Front, stretching from Estonia to Romania, is no longer theoretical. This is not a call to arms. It is a migration of mindset. From diplomacy alone to diplomacy with prepared consequences. The tanks may still be parked, missiles may still be under wraps, but the infrastructure for conflict is back in place. And when posture holds long enough, it becomes position. And position, if tested, becomes decision. Pay attention to the preparations, so the next European war, if it comes, will not be announced. It will simply begin.